We want to thank Next Level Marketing for being our opening sponsor on the podcast. If you have social media that you use for marketing, you need to check out Next Level Marketing and follow them on Facebook. You can also reach them at Gary Bontrager Consulting on our website, www.garybontrager.com. They will do a free audit for you and check out what your social media, how it's performing, what loopholes there are, and how you can tighten it up and be more effective with your marketing. They will help put strategies together to use organic growth to maximize the dollars that you do spend. We appreciate them being an associate sponsor with us on this Mindset Growth podcast and enjoy what they do for us. This is a company that we work with and we endorse, and we don't take that lightly. Welcome to another episode of Mindset Growth Podcast. I'm Gary Bontrager, your host, and we are so excited for our next guest. He is somebody who inspires me just from the aspect of being a young person that is so not only friendly and assertive, but just aggressive in goal setting and what he wants to accomplish in life. And I see him be a person that's also precise on how he follows through on all those things to achieve what his end goal is that he sets. So with that, I want to welcome JD Klopfenstein to the podcast.
Hey,
JD,
Gary.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Did I pronounce your name correctly?
You did. You did.
Awesome.
That's impressive.
Awesome. So appreciate you coming on here and being on here. Really what we look at is really based off of our name, the Mindset Growth. And we like to talk to people that over time, they've maybe changed their mindsets or they've figured out a way to set goals and accomplish maybe more than they once thought. Now, clearly you're a young person. And the one thing that, well, we'll get into that a little bit. I guess let's back up a little bit there and just tell us about yourself, maybe a little bit about how you grew up and some of that.
Yeah. So I'm actually originally from Mount Pleasant. So it's probably 47, 50 miles south of Iowa City.
Yeah. And that's Mount Pleasant, Iowa.
Correct.
We have listeners around the world. So we want to make
Okay,
sure that
yeah.
we get the right place for those who want to find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mount Pleasant, Iowa. So yeah, smack dab in the Midwest,
Yes.
small town of 12,000. So born and raised there, so very Midwestern lifestyle focused, working hard, family first. And, was raised on the upbringing of, you got to work for everything that you want in life and nothing is ever truly given to you. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a very strong upbringing.
So you probably went to the local high school there.
Yep.
Okay. And then your parents, I would imagine, were a very influential part of that.
Absolutely. So my parents, and then especially I have to give credit to my grandmother, being from small town Iowa, you have to work at either the Hy-Vee growing up or, help on one of the local family farms. And so my grandmother had a small acreage. So when I was like 10, 12 years old, I would go out there and spend time with her and she would teach me the value of hard work.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing that I learned from her was that if you don't do it right the first time, you probably shouldn't do it at all. And I think about that all the time and just about every aspect of what I do today.
And so I guess I want to visit about that just a little bit, because often if you don't do it right, it might be because you're not experienced and you need to, learn how to do it. But she would talk about more, it might not be something that fits your best ability.
Yes, or if it's something easy, right? Like whether it's picking up a piece of trash off the ground, everything from the big ticket items to even the small things. Like don't only give half your effort. Give almost 100% of your effort on everything, or just don't take the time to do it all, because then somebody else will have to come on the back end and help you out. But to your point with the experience and such, she would always teach me, if you don't know, just never hesitate to ask for help and guidance too.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I like to talk to folks about, sometimes I would hear older coaches in years past talk about, you cannot be any better than your greatest weakness, but I like to look at it, let's focus on your strengths and stay in that lane, and you're probably going to accomplish more. At the same time, you're exactly right. Whether it comes to picking up trash and things like that, your environment, whatever you're doing, give it everything you've got and do it correctly. So
absolutely,
it's kind of great to I just wanted to clarify that, I guess. But it's what's a morning routine look like for JD?
Yeah. So be honest, I'm not a morning person. It takes almost every part of me to get up and be efficient in the morning. So again, it ties back to making sure you got to put that effort in to do the things that you don't want to do.
Okay.
And so I'm just not a morning person. But when I do get up, first thing I do is I want to make sure that I have my notes ready for the day ahead, which I actually start preparation for my morning the night before.
Okay.
So that way I can focus on actually putting in that effort to get up. I'm actually more of a night owl when it comes to a lot of things. Yeah.
We just had a guest on in the last month or two that talked about that same thing, about he starts his morning actually the night before.
Yeah.
So, and I think he probably gets up, somewhat early in the mornings, but it's just the whole piece that when he does get up, he's prepared and he already knows.
Yep.
And I think it gives him, probably gives you some, maybe some cushion or adjustment so you can kind of be flexible with that. Clearly, with that being said, what's the most productive time of day for you then? I mean, you probably answered that. But
yeah. So typically for me, it's going to be the later afternoon, early evening. I feel like there's 2 windows during the day where you can be pretty efficient with your time.
Okay.
It's either early morning when the majority of individuals are still asleep, getting their kids ready for school. And then the second part is, later in the afternoon, early evening when people are off of work and spending time with friends, family, and then allowing you the free time to get a lot of what you need to get done.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And I think that works different in different industries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we interview people from realtors to, maybe people that own construction and different things. So there's also different windows of time. And so it's interesting. There's not really a right answer in all of that. I do have 3 what we call rapid fire questions. You did not get these, so we're going to catch you off guard just to kind of see how you respond. So if you're a quick decision maker, you're going to be just fine with all of that. What is one childish thing you still enjoy?
I would still say being playful. I mean, it's one of those where we all get so caught up in our professions. We have to keep that face when we're out in public, but it's still having the ability to let loose with friends and family when appropriate.
Okay. So don't take yourself too serious.
Exactly.
Just relax.
Yeah, exactly.
Find that, it's part of that work-life balance that everybody has. Would you rather travel to the past or the future?
Oh, I would say the past, then you can take the experience that you've learned up to this point and then take it back with you and make some changes. I truly believe that everything does happen for a reason, but if you could go back and alter a couple things, I'd be curious to see what life would look like moving forward.
Would you be curious? I mean, you say you would be curious, but you probably also would go back knowing some things would be very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You think of those things that would be different. But I also like to talk to people about just don't live with regret. Yeah. Stuff happens in life and we just learn and adapt and move forward. So it's not always all bad. Yeah. Do you collect anything?
I would say I started getting on the trend of watches. So I don't actually have one on with me today, but started that habit last year.
That's almost a party foul then for you.
I know.
It should be part of your attire every day.
I know. I didn't want the audio listeners to, not be able to see if I had a piece on or not. So I had to respect them.
Yeah, had to work that one there. We talked a little bit about how you grew up, but what was your one thing that I find interesting? And I interview all kinds of people. Mm-hmm. And some of them grow up, their parents are divorced. They maybe grew up not even knowing one parent. Others have the most wonderful family unit ever. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about what was your family structure like growing up? What was, I mean, you brought up your grandmother already. Mm-hmm. So clearly you had some generational connection.
Absolutely. So I would tell you it was really family focused, but we also valued hard work too. My dad had his own private business on top of working a full-time job. And so a lot of the times he would be out working and we'd be at home with my mom, but he also explained why he may not have been around as much. And a lot of it came down to working hard to be able to provide for the family, to allow us to do what we enjoy doing, whether it's vacations or baseball or, just traveling. in general. So it was a lot of it was centered around the value of hard work and how that actually comes back and provides for the family. It was never about, hey, I'm going to happy hour with some friends after work and I'll see you guys later. It was always, if I'm not at home with the family, I am working hard to provide for the family.
Okay.
So it taught me a lot about prioritization, family values, and then also being able to, make sure that you're providing for the ones that you care about.
And the reason I guess I start with that because of where we're going to lead with some questioning, I think a lot of times we don't, or kids are not taught enough the reasons that their parents do things. And I think that's somewhat important because I believe what we're going to learn today is that a lot of what you're accomplishing in life based off of the examples you were said. I mean, just with your grandmother and with your parents. Yep. And I think it probably helps kids maybe not have that resentment when their parents do work hard and have a lot of that time because they understand that whole philosophy a lot better. Maybe even helping them set goals and plan better for their future as well. You had brothers, sisters, only child?
So I actually have a younger brother. He is currently wrapping up school here at Iowa. He is about 3 years younger than I am. And it's interesting because both of us are slightly different. And I mean this in the most respectful way to him.
Right.
But he was definitely, babied growing up. And then I was the one that was like, hey, value hard work. And I don't know if it's the second child thing or whatever the case may be, baby sibling.
Yeah.
Yep. But you can definitely tell there's personality differences and such there. But yeah.
The interesting part with that, though, is I've got 4 kids myself. Each of them at a different stage of life kind of developed a little different work ethic or goals and what they want to accomplish. So he'll probably be just fine.
Yeah, he wants to be a doctor, so I'm sure he'll be all right.
He's got a lot of school ahead of him there. Yeah. Where'd you go to school at?
So went to Mount Pleasant High School. And then, during that time, they were just introducing like entry-level college courses that the school would pay for. So from there, went to Southeastern Community College for my first 2 years of college, just getting my general eds out of the way. So that was down in West Burlington, Iowa.
Okay.
And then I did a program that allowed me to transfer to the University of Iowa here in Iowa City to wrap up my degree in finance.
And at what point, did you have to pay for all the college yourself? Did your parents provide all the education? How was that?
Yeah, so it was a little bit split up. My brother and I, we both have college savings funds that are out there. So that kind of ties into what I do a little bit as well. So we basically had the majority of our schooling paid for, but anything that the fund could not cover, then we would have to pay for out of pocket.
Okay, so there still was skin in the game, and you had to do that.
Yeah.
A couple of things. I met you at a conference, and it was just as the crowd was dying down. I hadn't really spotted you, but for some reason, we just ended up at the bar together, as I recall, and we start visiting. And my first impression was that you were very inquisitive and wanted to learn. And I don't know if it was my gray hair. You thought the guy's got some miles under his belt or what it was that intrigued you, but you asked so many good questions. And it just seemed to me like that was inspiring, which is why I've even asked you to be on here today. But it also led to where you and I developed a relationship, and we would occasionally meet. We don't consistently or often, but we stayed in touch and currently have some mutual clients as well. But what was so impressionable to me was that I felt you were very focused and driven at a young age. So I have a question, I guess, a couple of questions out of that whole statement. And one of them simply is, at what point did you realize that you wanted to get into the career field you were in?
Yeah. So I would say my senior year of high school, after graduating, I spent a summer with my uncle, just a couple of weeks with some extended family. And so, to kind of let the audience know, I work in wealth management, so investment services, financial planning, et cetera. And then my business partner and I, we have our own private practice that is partnered with Principal. So he kind of showed me, hey, I bought XYZ investment here and I sold up here and I made X amount of money. And I said, you didn't go to work to make any of that. You just invested some money and put it to work for you, and you made X amount. And that was literally the start of everything. That was the first time I learned that you can put money to work for you. And then I wanted to pair that with a career that gave back to people. Being from small town Iowa, I volunteered a lot. I was in Boy Scouts.
Right.
And I wanted to find a career that allowed me to help people, but also tie in the ability to have your money work for you.
Okay. I've got it just with that statement saying you're in Boy Scouts, and we talk, and I like to go back to how people grow up. And a lot of times, or I shouldn't say a lot of times, sometimes when we talk about that, it may be to show that no matter what you have gone through, like you probably grew up in a very healthy, stable environment that was just setting you up to really start, much advanced from probably where your parents started possibly.
Yep.
And other times we see people that they go through all these hardships and you're like, how in the heck did they change their mindset to accomplish those things? So, Boy Scouts, you were in that, and I know very little about it because my kids all played other sports and did things, so we never got into that type of thing. But was there leadership and things like that you learned in there that are beneficial to you today?
Absolutely. So there's even specific week-long trips that you go on tied to leadership. So there was one called NYLT, which is National Youth Leadership Training. So they send you to a week, and then you learn basically a bunch of leadership skills, communication skills that you can take back to your troop and be able to take on those leadership roles moving forward. So, and I remember very vividly, I did not want to go, but that was one of those things where I'm glad I did, because a lot of those things that I was comfortably uncomfortable with has led to, a lot of the communication and leadership abilities I have today.
So how old were you when you did that?
Oh, it was, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah.
And your parents weren't with you, so you did it multiple years.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So that alone is just really an amazing experience. There's a lot of kids that don't leave their parents really for any length of time, other than maybe to go spend time with grandparents. So it teaches you independence.
Yeah,
pretty quickly.
It does.
Responsibility.
It really does. I remember, the first week that you go to what's called summer camp or whatever,
right?
And you're completely away from your parents for a full week, and they do come and visit. I think it's towards the end,
right?
Just as a family day. But other than that, you're there with just a bunch of guys and the leadership, and you just you basically have to make it through the week. So
the fascinating thing is, I don't think it matters what we do in life, but as we learn how to make decisions and how to do leadership, that's really how we're going to either start businesses or create, just even opportunities for ourselves, because it's not always starting a business. It can be people that have opportunities in companies and just figure out how to develop so much more reward out of even those positions. So it really hits a lot of aspects. Back to the financial piece. When you were seeing that, though, when that mentor that did that, was he into financial products, or he just took money and invested it, and you seen it from that side?
So, it was just my uncle's personal money, and so
he was just investing it.
Correct. He was just doing his own thing. He didn't work with an advisor, planner, or anything like that. He just, everyone, everybody has a play account,
right?
And so that was his play account, and so he was just showing me what he was able to do, and I was just very intrigued by it, and was thinking, now how can I do that? I remember when I got home, I ordered a bunch of books. I started reading articles online just to get the foundational pieces before going.
And that was just to learn about financial investing.
Mm-hmm.
And how old were you there?
18.
Okay, so that was senior year of high school.
Yep.
And were you setting goals for where you wanted to hit, certain markers in your career or your business life?
So after graduation, I can tell you, I already knew the path I wanted to go on.
Okay.
So it was a matter of getting there. And sometimes you just have to plan it, and you can figure out the stuff in the middle that's going to get you there.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of setting that goal first. And for me, I wanted to get an internship or some sort of experience as soon as I could. And to your point, we met randomly at the tail end of a networking event.
Right.
And I remember I was at the local gym one night, and this guy came in and we just struck up a conversation. And he was interning at a local financial office in Fairfield, Iowa. And it's actually one of the larger independent financial companies out there. And so I asked him, about his experience, how he got the internship, various things. And he's impacted me a lot as well, even just from that simple conversation. So that's kind of where everything got snowballed, was from one simple conversation with a random person just at the right time and place.
So you don't pass up opportunities to strike up conversations, make new friends?
Depending on the situation, no, not really.
Because I know you're a very outgoing person, and it was easy to visit with you. I often like to, and I don't know how many high school kids we have listen to this, but if it's even parents, I just always like to lay out that challenge. I think so much pressure is put on kids, and maybe you can allude to this a little bit because you clearly knew, but I know from my own kids, not a single one, I don't believe, maybe the youngest one, knew what they wanted to do as a graduating senior in high school. And so they all kind of took a path or a step or two, and then it kind of developed, and they kind of knew at that point in time. You're on the other side of that. Was that unusual amongst your friends that you knew what you wanted to do and they didn't?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. And even to this day, I still give back to my local high school, whether it's my time or just talking to one of the students. And the same thing here at the University of Iowa. I give my time as a mentee as well to a credit hour course. And a lot of the times you'll find that these students, they just haven't figured it out yet. And the advice that I give to all of them is, don't be afraid to ask somebody for 15 minutes of their time just to learn more about what they do, because that could save you a lifetime of figuring it out.
You don't have to learn it all yourself.
Exactly.
Learn it from somebody else. What is, this is totally, I'm going off the script on that, but this is kind of a Stephen Covey thing.
Yep. And
Stephen Covey always talks about how to take the focus off yourself and focus on others. And, his thing is, find somebody who doesn't have family that's in a nursing home and go see them every month or every other week, and just things to get your focus off of yourself and reach out to those. Is that something you were taught just as a child growing up, that you need to, serve and help others? Because I see that you really are into figuring out ways to give back. I mean, whether it's your high school, just different things you do. What drove you to create that to be a part of your life?
Yep. I think a lot of it came down to volunteering and giving my time at a young age. So, a lot of what I've attested to what I know now comes from my youth. And I think starting the volunteering early on and giving my time early on has really led me to continue to be comfortable doing that even today.
So your parents really pushed that?
Parents, organizations we were parts of, just giving back time.
But they would have pushed you to be in those organizations probably.
Yes and no. I would still have a choice at the end of the day. And my dad always said, well, if you don't want to do it, then you have to be the one that tells, whether it's a coach or the leader at an organization, that you're going to be the one to quit. And so he kind of instilled, hey, you got to see things through. But on the same note too, it wasn't anything that was truly like forced upon me either, but I enjoyed it as well.
So as 18, knowing what you want to get into, you start going to a community college, transfer to the University of Iowa, and you know the career direction you want to go. Who were mentors you followed back then?
So a lot of the mentors that I followed back then were, some of the bigger people that you see online today, whether it was, the Grant Cardones of the world. I didn't really have anyone that I would say is like a local mentor at that point. Somebody that I can latch onto. That came probably at the midway point of my career, so just a few years back. So it was just a lot of, again, the early on podcast hosts and the big business guys.
I just see that, and again, I talk about some of this, just challenge listeners. You've got to find ways to keep feeding your mind. We're always feeding our body. You got to feed your mind. It needs to be intentional on how we go about that, how we're going to accomplish that. And if you were going to give some advice to a high school student today, what would you tell them? Because in my mind, sitting here, being in business for how many years and doing all the things I've done, it is so inspiring to have you on this podcast, you know,
I appreciate
because I think from a parent's point of view, you're the son every parent would want. And I just share that because you're so intentional, you're so driven, so motivated, articulate on the things that you've done. And clearly you've done a lot of things to get there. And your parents, yes, they maybe let you make some of those decisions, but they also facilitated that environment.
Exactly.
So if young kids or parents of high school kids are listening, what advice would you give them that you would do different?
I would probably have them analyze their friend group first. And that I just want
to high five you, or at least fist pump you on that one.
Yeah. I really don't want them to take away from the youthfulness of still growing up, right? Enjoying the fun times and sometimes even the dumb decisions. But at the same time, too, really grabbing their attention early on and focusing on the few people that's truly around them. Because as you can see, growing up, a lot of the times we act like our friend group, and sometimes we make great decisions. Sometimes we make really poor decisions. So I'd really advise on, bringing awareness to the people that they hang around with the most, because they can either bring them up or, as we know, bring them down.
Right.
Yeah.
And if that's the advice you're giving, I believe at this point today, you have a process how you consider your friends and who you pursue and spend time with.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And it doesn't mean you can't have fun. It's just you want people that are motivated and going places in life that are headed on the same direction or trajectory, right?
Yep.
So with that being said, the next question I have for you, what motivates you? I mean, when you think of JD, I think of you, I always think of a very motivated person, friendly and all that. You're not so intense, as we've already shared, but you're clearly on a path, where you want to go. And it's still, I think, uncommon for somebody your age to be that intentional with it.
Yeah.
So what fires you up every morning?
Yeah. So it's funny you bring that up. At my age, I had a client I met with yesterday, and they're like, "How old are you again?" And I said, 26. I'm like, "Really? You're like our grandkids' age. We thought you were like 35." So I do get that quite a bit. And honestly, there's two things that motivate me. The first is I want to make sure that I'm able to provide for the families that rely on me for their financial futures and be able to provide them the right advice, because just like in any industry, there's a lot of good people, but there's also a lot of bad people. So for me, I have the responsibility of making sure that my clients are taken care of. And if something happens to me, heaven forbid, that I have a team in place that can immediately pick up that ball and keep it moving forward.
I just even want to break that down right there, because I think there's, I work a lot with business owners and a lot of those have no perpetuation plan. And, often they may talk negative towards employees and they'll say they're not smart. And a lot of what, to me, it's a leadership issue. You don't want to pay what that position is really worth. So you're maybe not going to hire the level of talent. But then when it comes back to what you're talking about, God forbid something happened to you, there's nobody there qualified to really take on and service that client. So that was one thing that you've pointed out. What was the second thing? Maybe I missed it.
No, so the second thing is, like in my industry, it's interesting how we get compensated. So I tell everybody, as long as I do the right things for the client, the compensation comes after the fact.
Right.
And so it goes in tandem with the second thing was I want to make sure that no matter what situation my personal family or close friends get put into, that I can be there financially if needed. So whether it's medical bills, whether it's running behind on rent or something like that, I want to be able to be in that position where I can provide for the ones who have supported me along the way. Because coming out of college and starting a career where you're asking people to talk about their finances as a 21, 22-year-old, I mean, first couple of years were tough. And so I always want to make sure that the ones who've stuck by me no matter what are taken care of if they do need help.
And it's incredible if kids start at 18, even compared to 25, the millions that makes a difference at age 65. But with both of those things, it's about other people. And I want to make note of that. And just for the audience to hear and understand, if you really want to accomplish things in life, the first thing you have to do is take your focus off yourself. You've really got to focus on others and how you're going to serve others. As soon as you do it it's about you. And we've all seen the selfish little kid that then doesn't have any friends in the playground. Yeah. It's really, though, adults grow up and do the same thing. Yep. And I just want to point that out. I mean, one, I know you're mature enough to take it as a compliment, but two, I want to take that example, and that's why I wanted to ask you that question, because Zig Ziglar always told us for years it was his thing, you can have anything in life you want as long as you help others get what they want. And it's back to some of the volunteering. There's no pay and no reward, but there really is. It's the guy that goes to the office and just sits in there and doesn't give back to the communities that he serves or works in will undoubtedly, at some point, not reap the benefits of the very same person that goes in and gives a lot of that back. So I just think people need to be very intentional about that. And I just want folks to understand that. Yeah. Is that something you were taught as a kid?
I would say it all ties back to, the work that I did growing up, whether it was a part-time job at IV, whether it was a volunteer work. It was always kind of instilled in me to give back to others. My grandmother, again, tying back to her, would always, tell me, don't lie, always tell the truth, do what's right. And so a lot of the foundational stuff is I received from my family or personal experience. And it can take an entire lifetime to build a reputation, and I want to be the type of person who's known for giving back to others, whether it's through my profession or whether it's, financially for the close friends and family that I can help.
We want to thank Century Insurance for being a sponsor on the Mindset Growth Podcast. They work in about 18 different states, bringing insurance needs to small businesses, construction, and others likewise. They will tailor packages that fit your needs. They can work with bonds, home and auto insurance, life insurance and benefits, as well as health insurance. They will help you through the process of putting together a tailored package that benefits you and serves your family and your clients to its most effective capacity. We appreciate their support. We want to thank Gary Bontrager Consulting for being a sponsor on the Mindset Growth Podcast. There's a variety of services they offer. They have human resources for one. They have a sales program. They also work with the financials, whether you need to help set up your QuickBooks or go with a high-level person that can help you do benchmarking, budgeting, and the likewise. They also do a lot of leadership training, whether you're the business owner, manager, or are just leaders in departments. They can tailor those packages for you. Reach out to them for a free consult, and they will see what your needs are and offer different opportunities for you to put in motion to take your business to the next level. They have been successful over the past few years in helping organizations not only grow, but grow as much as 200%, 300%, and 400% in a 12-month period. Certainly, they understand it takes a strong foundation, and there are years where there may be no growth leading up to this, as they put the right pieces in place. Reach out to them at www.garybontrager.com. You can reach out to them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and get the free advice that they offer, and that may be just what you need to set you on a different path to lead you forward and be successful in your business and your life. We appreciate them supporting us. So you talk about taking a lifetime to build your reputation. Mm-hmm. Clearly, it's more than just giving back.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing with us what are some of those like top 2, 3, 5 things that these are important to me? I'm going to do these.
Yeah. It's making sure that, especially in my industry, that people I work with understand why they're doing what they're doing. I feel like there's a lot of individuals who either sell a product or tie somebody up in an investment that just leaves the client uneducated. So making sure that, again, it all ties back to clients being taken care of. But then on top of that, it's making sure that it's not just them, but it's also the next generation, the ones who they want to leave assets behind to.
Okay.
And knowing that there is a generational impact that ties back to the reputation that I'm building too.
Okay. If you're going to look into the next 10 years, what does that look like for you?
That's a really good question.
And you don't need to tell us that you're proposing to your girlfriend or anything like that. I'm just thinking more like life goals.
Yeah. At some point, starting a family.
Right.
Because one, besides the parents being like, when are you going to get married and have kids? I also want to start a family of my own and instill the same values in my kids as what I received growing up.
Right.
But also too on the business front, continuing to grow the firm that my business partner and I have established and opened a second location. And we want to continue to add to that team because we understand the more people that we can impact from our profession, it requires more bodies in the office to do that because we only have so much capacity to do that. So the goal is to essentially grow a $1 billion firm in the next 10 years.
So with that, what are some steps and processes that you guys take so that that you can see that, happen and just grow for you guys?
Yep. So, I mean, the biggest thing, and I have to give my business partner credit because he's really instilled it on me because I think we get so tied up in what we're really good at that we don't focus on some of the day-to-day, whether it's, the biggest thing was tracking data. So making sure that we can keep a tally of everything that we're bringing in, the new clients, existing business that just wants to add more.
Right.
So it all comes down to tracking that data and then running our projections on it.
Okay. And with that, though, I have to believe you guys are doing annual goal setting. You have, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, whatever that looks like. There's clear goals set and expectations.
Yeah.
You grew up in the Midwest. Yeah. You do business here. Clearly, if you're building a practice, you're probably going to stay here. Yep. But what intrigues you to some of the Midwestern values and why you want to stay here in this community?
So it's definitely family first.
Okay.
Family first. I have friends in Chicago, LA, Florida, down in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. And you can see just with the different lifestyles that are around the country. And when you come back home to the Midwest and in particular Iowa, the family values is typically number one.
Okay.
Versus the rat races of the New Yorks of the world, or the LAs of the world. So it's, putting that attention on, the ones who are there for you.
How do you, you're talking family first, but, again, that had to be something you learned growing up. Do you believe that can't happen in those other places, or it's just culturally it's kind of just changed and shifted?
Yep. I'd say the biggest change that you see when you go to these places are the amount of individuals, young professionals in their early 30s, mid 30s, late 20s that are focused solely on their career. And there's a lot more of them there than what you may see around here.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it ties to, being in that environment where you're obviously more competitive.
Right.
And you want to work your way up the ladder. And so in order to do that, you have to really give your time and attention to that profession or that career or that company. And, I was a great place to be, but we don't have the Microsoft offices here. We don't have the Googles of the world coming here and building those large corporate headquarters or extension offices. So in order to be able to work up that ladder, I feel like a lot of those demographics have the infrastructure in place to allow somebody to focus on the career.
And did I hear you right? You help with class some?
As far as like college courses?
Yeah.
Yep. So there is a 1 credit hour course at the university where it's like, basically it's a professional preparation course. So a lot of the kids that take it, it's a 1 credit hour, 1 semester, 9-week course where focuses on informational interviews, resume reviews, just general introduction, how to present yourself. And so you get paired up with 1 or 2 mentees every single semester, and you basically give them your time and guidance, and they fill in the questionnaire to see what industries and such that they're interested in, and they get paired up accordingly.
So out of that experience, working with those, what would you tell parents that have high school kids or high school kids to get a head start on that process?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say, first and foremost, don't be afraid to take classes that intrigue you, because that's the same thing almost as getting that hands-on experience or chatting with someone in that industry. So I would recommend, making sure you take advantage of courses that do intrigue you,
right?
Because that could be the game changer as far as the career trajectory that you plan to go on. And then don't be afraid to ask, your professors for any sort of advice. And because one thing that I regret, and I hate to even admit that, but I didn't network as hard as I did in college as I did now that I'm post grad.
Right.
So a lot of the professors at a lot of these big schools, they have a network that exceeds what you would even imagine.
Right.
And that's how a lot of my friends got placed where they did, is because they were able to spend the time to network and build those connections.
I would agree with that completely. It's there's so many kids that go to school, I don't care where it's at, and people listening, truly relationships is what business in general is about. I don't care where you're working, what you're doing, you don't need to be self-employed. It's the relationships that make the difference. I love nothing more than flying somewhere and seeing how many people I'm going to know in the airport or on that plane, especially if they're flying out of Eastern Iowa. It's seldom I don't know a few people. And it's just interesting as I do that, how I think about how I connected with all these people.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you. If there's one thing I would change completely, is I would try to network and do different things. The other thing I'd like to summarize as well, outside of the networking, really should be probably ahead of the networking, is choosing friends.
Yeah.
And I don't care what stage in life you're at. I have had to do this several times in my own career, and I am sure you've probably done it. There are even people, as you start into a job, an occupation, or a business, that at some point you realize you've hit the cap. And once you want to go to the next level, you really need to shift where you're putting your time, who you're spending it with, all of those things. So never stop evaluating is the other piece of that. And it's probably the first piece as you evaluate your friends. Never stop evaluating friends, but even yourself. And where where you can keep leveraging to grow and become the next person. Clearly, we need to grow every day. I want to also share this with you. I can count on probably one hand how many people were either just out of college or in college that have very respectfully contacted me and wanted to spend time with me with really no agenda, but were just genuine on wanting to understand, as near as I can tell, maybe how I function, how I've accomplished what I've done. And you are one of those. And I've had another young man do it and ask specifically for only 15 minutes because he said, I cannot pay for it. And I don't feel like I deserve to take more of your time because, and I certainly spent more than 15 minutes with the young man. But I had a deep appreciation for him, and it's a way to give back. So I even challenge, business owners maybe that are older or people that have great positions in companies to mentor those folks. It's back to giving back to your community and developing others.
I agree with that. And it really does show too, because I really think that we have an impact on people, whether or not it's a direct influence or indirect. And, if that college grad or high school grad reaches out to you, find time in the calendar. Now, granted, I understand you can't do it for like 100 people, but every so often you have no idea the impact that you could have on that person's life that could completely change the outcome of where they go.
I would even challenge folks beyond that. And I have done several variations of this. I would even figure out, as you're building out your schedule throughout the week, what time you're going to donate.
Yes.
We know if we earn $1,000 where it's going to be allotted. We can budget all of those things. And I think the time, or the thing that we do not budget enough, is absolutely our time, which is our most valuable resource. The thing with money, and I'm just kind of going off script here, but I know we deal with a lot of that, in just our day to day. But the thing with money is we can lose it and we can gain it. The thing with time, it's the only inventory, we can go into any other inventory and we can replenish it. You cannot replenish time. And so if I challenge anybody with time, think about that, because there's a lot of folks that are highly successful and they are obviously do very well at managing time. And so I think we often look at it like, well, I enjoy this, I want to do this. And if we can figure out that balance, because that's clearly all we're doing with money is figuring out a balance. We're trading time for either leverage of some kind and deciding how much we're going to leverage it to get the end result with what we're going to put in our bank account each week or month. It's the same thing with time. And so I just want to challenge the audience to think about that.
Yep.
You know, I mean, and I'll just throw it out there because I don't think there's that much new material out there. I think different people take it and maybe connect it with folks differently, but that's where I come back. You know, that was where I learned it from, was a Stephen Covey course I took, was just giving back to the community. And you've done a tremendous job with that. But there's so many times I have done that, and I have people like, why do you keep doing that? Why do you know? But I'll do a stint here and a stint there and kind of move it around. But there's so many relationships and clients that have just developed out of those things. And some of them are just genuine good people, and there's nothing but a good friendship. And it's cool with that.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And and kind of tying back to my business partner, he's going to love listening to this because of how much credit I give him. One thing that he really helped me with and helped me prioritize is, you know, the time on the calendar.
Right.
I would typically schedule, you know, as many meetings as possible, either whether it's just review meeting with existing clients or prospective client meetings on my calendar Monday through Friday. So Monday mornings, we spend our time, 9 a.m. sharp, team meeting. What's the week look like? What do we need to prioritize and accomplish right now? And then on Fridays, we actually, unless it's an emergency, we try and block off the morning for purely taking off the wealth management hat and putting on the CEO hat to focus on the business. And then we spend the second half of the day planning for the week to come, as well as any prospecting opportunities and marketing opportunities we have.
So you're really taking your entire Friday to build business.
Yep.
And I point that out because I kind of had my questions and we're totally off the script on this. But this is awesome because, again, folks, so many people work in the business and they do not take the time to work on the business. And it comes back to allotting, if you sit down and figure out what's important to you, the big thing that you have to figure out is how you're going to allot the time to work on all those things. And working on the business is an absolute must. You just have to. If you don't, you can't grow a company.
Exactly.
You can't serve other people. You can't provide maybe for your family the way you should. So,
and then on top of that too, it makes you more efficient Monday through Thursday or however you structure the calendar, because then if you look at it, you're losing a day that you could be using to keep on the, hey, I'm going to just keep running the business hat. But when you take that step back and you focus on the business itself, then it makes you more efficient for the rest of the days in the week too.
Well, it raises your awareness. It gives you the time to actually figure out what's the most profitable and equitable things you should be doing and spending your time with, and who else is maybe better suited to do certain aspects of those things for you. So I appreciate we got into that. I believe if there's one thing anybody's ever going to use to be successful, it's time management. And I think they cannot possibly go through that process of figuring out their time management without figuring out their own core values and what's important to them. And there's a whole balance, you know, for a lot of folks, it's faith, but it's family and then work. And if you can get those balanced right, a lot of times you can play more, work more, and enjoy your family more. And it's just odd because we tie ourselves into being so busy. And I find business owners who whine about not being able to get good help ever, that, you know, I just have to do it myself. But if you're doing, you know, if you don't even know what you feel your worth is and what value is per hour that you should be earning, you're going to end up doing things that are going to earn you much less and not get you that reward.
And to that point too, for all the listeners, that's something that I struggled with was when I hired my first assistant and trusting her to do the things that I know I'm efficient at, but it's not a good use of my time. So really building that trust and rapport, it doesn't come overnight. I mean, it comes through proper training, culture within the organization. But the biggest thing is just you have to trust that person to do it. And if it doesn't work out, there's billions of other people out there who could be the right fit. So, you know, don't feel like if it doesn't work out with the first one, that there isn't that right fit for you out there. And being able to, again, to your point, time management, you can't tackle everything. You have a finite amount of time every day, every month, every year, and you can't do it all. So you need to be able to delegate and find the right people that fit those positions to take that workload off of you so you can focus on what you're efficient at.
Right. And at Gary Bontrager Consulting, we go through and help people figure out what their top priorities are a lot. And it's interesting when we take them through this exercise, they will spend 80, if not 90% of their time on all the items that are well below where they should be. And it's mind-blowing to them. They don't even see it and understand it. And then once it's all on paper and we have a way of categorizing those things, they're just like, what? How's that possible? I'm just busy. That's all I'm doing is just being busy. So it's huge and life-changing for that to take place and that to happen.
And that's where you can incorporate that day where you take off, the day-to-day hat, you put on the business owner hat, and you look at it from 30,000 feet above and see, all right, now what changes do we need to make as an organization to continue to be more efficient and allow me the time to do what I'm good at?
I've had a long career in property and casualty and in insurance. And I had this philosophy. I didn't want to pay anybody. I just worked alone for a number of years.
I get that.
And there's a gentleman in the town we're in right now, and he's very successful in the financial products. When he started out his career, he did the same thing I was doing. And one day he told me to knock it off and kind of help me, work myself through that process. And for him, he just said simply, once I brought in a real good assistant, I think tripled or quadrupled his production in the next 12 months. And what was amazing was he was spending so much time doing what he was not good at instead of doing the things he was good at and focusing on that. So,
and that's what I tell my assistant too. And very similar to his story, as soon as I hired her, within the next 12 months, there was a significant increase in revenue. And I did nothing different other than I was able to meet more people and spend time with my clients. And it's interesting just how much more efficient you can be and how much more revenue you can generate by just having the one or two people in the right places.
And they don't want to do your job.
No.
And once they do what they do, you don't want to do their job.
Exactly.
They're so much better at it. What's some advice you would just give in general? I know I've asked you a couple of different questions, but with what we've just got through discussing, what are a couple of, on that topic, what's something, if you walk out of here today and you want somebody to be successful and they're listening to you right now, where's the starting point?
There's definitely three things. The first is never stop being curious. I feel like it doesn't matter how smart we may think we are, we don't know everything, and we can always learn more from others. So never stop being curious or asking those questions. The second is don't be afraid to show some humility out there. Absolutely. We're not right on everything. And then the third is, work hard. And that's, you can talk to any successful person out there. Nothing ever comes easy. Yeah, you might hear the local person winning the lottery once in your lifetime, but nothing comes easy, and you need to work hard for everything you have.
And I will add to that, because that is absolutely life-changing, incredible advice. But I would even add to the work hard part. It doesn't mean work long. It means work hard. I see people, and I did this in my first business, 80-hour weeks were the norm. And I was not doing well, but I was doing a lot of the things I shouldn't have been doing, and I was burned out, and the energy was down, and it just wasn't good. The other thing that I will attest to for the audience, and this is one reason I had JD on this show, is as a young man about 4 years ago, I think when I met you, would have been 22 years old, I have learned things from you.
I appreciate
it. And to me, I know there's no one I'm going to meet that I can't learn something from. Sometimes it may be things not to do, but hopefully I'm choosing to spend time with the folks that I can learn something from more positively. But don't be afraid to learn even things not to do. I mean, I'm doing things I hope people learn from me, and they don't have to make that mistake themselves. So I really appreciate you coming on. I'm just saying you dropped some serious bombs in what will work for a young person to be successful, and I appreciate it so much. With that, I also want to give you the opportunity where people can find you if they want to follow you, because when JD Klopfenstein says he likes to have fun. I follow you on social media, and that's a fact.
Yep.
You do not work all the time. You like to play and have fun, and you love to vacation.
Yep.
And so where can people find you? Because I find that being inspiring so that people can get maybe a snapshot of what you're telling us today, and they can kind of see it unfold on social media. And I am assuming you don't mind having followers.
No, I do not. I know there's some, like, as far as content, different restrictions.
Right.
I have my personal pages where people can follow me on. So very unique name. I'm the only one on Facebook. So I'm sure Gary and his team will plug how to spell it out somewhere.
Well, certainly when we post this podcast, your contact will be on there. And they'll be able to go out on your page and find it too if you choose to share this.
Yeah. So Facebook is just my name, JD Klopfenstein.
Okay.
Website, same thing, jdklopfenstein.com. And then my Instagram, which is private, so I'm kind of selective on who I allow. But I allow majority of people to follow my stuff. But that's JDK_96.
Okay. So they can look you up and request you, and then you will grade them. So if you guys have problems and need to get your house in order because you want to up your success game, try to get on his Instagram.
Yeah.
He's got a grading criteria he's going to put you through, and it'll only help you in life. So, hey, man, with that, I thank you so much for spending this hour with us. I just have always been inspired at a young person like you, and you in particular, how hard you have worked, and how, going back to what you've said, being curious and humble, and your work ethic, you exemplify all three of those. And again, I don't know your parents, but if I could, I would congratulate them on a wonderful son. So with that, thanks, Gary, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for being on Mindset Growth Podcast. Folks, I hope you find this as entertaining as I have. Just really have grown to have a deep appreciation for JD. So like our channel, follow us, subscribe. That way you can get all our content and continue to see guests like JD on our show. Thank you for joining us.